The telegram crumpled in Anna Caldwell's trembling hand as the last train whistle faded into Montana's endless sky. 3 days. She'd waited 3 days on that splintered crate, her wedding dress yellowing with dust, while the station master locked the depot and pretended not to see her. The man who'd promised her a new life, the one with silver-toed boots who'd written such tender letters, was never coming. But what Anna didn't know, couldn't know, was that 30 miles away, a different man was saddling his horse in the dead of night, racing against time to find the bride his dying cousin had abandoned. Friends, if you've ever felt forgotten by the world, stay with me until the end of Anna's story. And please comment below where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these tales of the Old West can travel. The Montana wind had teeth that October morning in 1880, gnawing through Anna Caldwell's wool traveling cloak as if it were made of gossamer. She shifted on the wooden crate that had become her throne of humiliation, her fingers working over the same creased letter for what must have been the 100th time. The words hadn't changed, though she'd stared at them long enough that they should have rearranged themselves into an explanation, an apology, anything but the promise that now mocked her. My dearest Anna, look for me by the depot wall. I shall be the tall gentleman in silver-toed boots holding a spray of wildflowers, your devoted husband-to-be, Everett Turner. The wildflowers in her own hands had wilted 2 days ago. She'd thrown them onto the tracks yesterday morning, watching a passing freight train scatter the petals like her dreams. Broken, irretrievable, gone. Miss? The voice startled her. Old Jim, the station master, stood a respectful distance away, his weathered face creased with the kind of pity that made Anna's stomach turn. She'd seen that look too many times these past 3 days, from the porter who'd helped her with her trunk, from the woman at the general store where she'd bought bread with her last coins, from every soul who'd witnessed her vigil. Depot's closing for the evening again, miss, Jim said, shuffling his feet. You got somewhere to go. The boarding house, Mrs. Fletcher's place. She's got rooms. Thank you, Mr. Morrison, but I'll wait a bit longer. Anna kept her voice steady, a skill learned from years of swallowing disappointment. The evening train from Helena came and went 2 hours ago, his voice gentled. Miss, I've been working this station 15 years. When a man don't show after 3 days... He trailed off, pulling at his gray beard. Well, maybe it's time to think about what comes next. What comes next? As if there were anything next. As if she hadn't sold every piece of furniture from her parents' home in Ohio, hadn't spent her last inheritance on the train ticket west, hadn't burned every bridge behind her because this promise of love and land and belonging was supposed to be her salvation. I appreciate your concern, Anna said, lifting her chin with the kind of dignity that cost everything and bought nothing. But I'll wait. Jim sighed, the sound carrying the weight of every abandoned bride he'd probably seen on this platform. I'll leave the lamp burning on the post then. Gets mighty cold after dark. Wouldn't want... He stopped himself. Well, good evening, miss. She listened to his boots retreat, the depot door creaking shut, the click of the lock that sealed her shame for another night. Alone again. The word had followed her like a shadow since her parents' death 2 years ago. Alone at the funeral, alone in the empty house, alone when the bank came calling for debts she couldn't pay. And now, alone on a train platform in a town whose name she could barely pronounce, waiting for a man who'd lied with every stroke of his pen. The sun bled crimson across the Montana sky, painting the mountains the color of old wounds. Anna pulled her cloak tighter, though it did nothing against the cold that lived in her bones now. She thought of the boarding house Jim had mentioned, of soft beds and hot meals, of dignity surrendered for comfort. Number. She'd rather freeze on this platform than crawl to charity. She'd done enough crawling writing to a stranger through a mail-order bride advertisement, hadn't she? Seeking a woman of good character and strong constitution for matrimony and partnership on established homestead. Must be willing to work hard and build a life in the Montana Territory. Promises of respect, provision, and companionship offered in return. She'd written back the same day she'd read it in the Cleveland newspaper, her pen flying across the page with desperate hope. 6 letters they'd exchanged. 6 letters full of dreams and plans and pretty words that meant nothing, apparently. She'd told him about her love of books, her skill with needle and thread, her dreams of children laughing in a house that smelled of fresh bread. He'd written about his ranch, his hopes for the future, the loneliness that ate at him during the long winter nights. Lies. All lies. A coyote howled somewhere in the darkness, and Anna shivered. The lamp Jim had left threw a small circle of yellow light, making the shadows beyond seem deeper, hungrier. She'd never been afraid of the dark before, but Ohio darkness was different, civilized, contained. This Montana night felt alive, watching, waiting to swallow her whole. "You're being dramatic," she whispered to herself, a habit from childhood when fear crept too close. "You're not some penny dreadful heroine. You're just a fool who believed pretty words from a stranger." But even as she said it, she pulled Everett's photograph from her pocket. The tintype was worn at the edges from handling, showing a handsome man with kind eyes and a shy smile. She'd built a whole life around that face. Imagined kissing those lips, holding children with those eyes, growing old beside that smile. How could a photograph lie so completely? The wind picked up, rattling the depot sign, sending dust devils dancing across the platform. Anna's stomach cramped with hunger, but she ignored it. She'd eaten yesterday. That had to be enough. The bread she'd bought sat in her carpet bag, but she was saving it. For what? She didn't know. Maybe for when hope finally died completely and she had to choose a direction, any direction, that wasn't this platform. "Excuse me, miss." Another voice, younger this time. Anna looked up to find a boy, maybe 15, holding the reins of a spotted pony. His clothes marked him as ranch work, worn denim, leather chaps, a hat that had seen better decades. "Yes? You Miss Anna?" Anna Caldwell? Her heart slammed against her ribs. Yes, I am. Did Mr. Turner send you?" The boy's face scrunched in confusion. "Don't know any Everett, miss. But Samuel Turner sent me to town for supplies, and Jim at the depot said there was a lady waiting here might need to know." He paused, seeming to realize he was delivering bad news to someone already drowning in it. "Mr. Samuel Turner's cousin took sick. Real sick. Been laid up in Helena going on a week now. Samuel just found out about you being here." Cousin. Sick. The words floated through Anna's mind like leaves on water, making patterns she couldn't quite grasp. "I don't understand. Everett Turner was supposed to meet me. We're to be married. Like I said, miss, don't know any Everett. But Samuel, he's got the Turner spread about 30 miles north. Maybe there's been some confusion?" Confusion. Such a small word for such a complete catastrophe. Anna stood on unsteady legs, 3 days of sitting making her muscles protest. "This Samuel Turner, he knows about me?" "Seemed to, miss. Sent me to town special when he heard about a lady waiting at the depot. Said to tell you." The boy shifted uncomfortably. "Said to tell you he's coming. That you should wait, and he's coming." Coming. Someone was coming. After 3 days of nothing, someone knew she existed, knew she was here, knew she was waiting. It wasn't Everett, wasn't the man whose photograph lived in her pocket, but it was something, someone. "When?" Her voice came out cracked, desperate. "When is he coming?" "Soon as he can, miss. His wagon broke an axle yesterday, and he's been trying to fix it. But he said to tell you he's coming, said it was important you know that." The boy wheeled his pony around, clearly uncomfortable with emotional women and their complications. "You need anything, miss? Jim said you been here a while." Pride warred with necessity. Necessity won. "Water. If you could, if there's water." "There's a pump around the side of the depot." "I'll show you." She followed him on unsteady legs, her body protesting the movement after so much stillness. The pump handle was rough with rust, but the water that came up was clear and cold, tasting of minerals and mountain snow. She drank greedily, not caring that the boy watched with poorly concealed pity. "Thank you," she managed when she'd drunk her fill. "For the message. For the water." "Yes, miss." He touched his hat brim. "You'll be all right." "Waiting here alone?" "I've managed 3 days," Anna said with a ghost of her old spirit. "I can manage a few more hours." After he left, she returned to her crate, but this time something was different. Someone was coming. Not the someone she'd expected, but someone who'd heard about her vigil, her humiliation, and decided to ride to her anyway. Samuel Turner. She rolled the name around in her mind, trying to make it fit the space Everett had carved out. It didn't fit. It was the wrong shape, the wrong sound, the wrong everything. But it was something. The moon rose full and bright, turning the landscape silver white and strange. Anna pulled out the bread she'd been hoarding, allowing herself 2 small bites before wrapping it again. She needed to keep her strength up. Someone was coming, and she needed to be ready for whatever that meant. Time moved differently in the dark. Minutes felt like hours, hours like days. She dozed fitfully, jerking awake every time she heard a sound, an owl's cry, the wind in the telegraph wires, her own heart beating too loud in the silence. Her dreams were confused things, full of silver-toed boots walking away, of photographs that changed faces when she wasn't looking, of trains that never stopped no matter how hard she waved. It was the horse that woke her properly. The sound of hooves on hard-packed earth, steady and purposeful, coming closer. Anna jerked upright, her neck screaming from the awkward position she'd slept in. The eastern sky was just beginning to lighten, that gray hour before dawn when the world seemed suspended between night and day. The rider emerged from the gloom like something from a fever dream, tall in the saddle, broad-shouldered, his face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. He rode a black horse that seemed to materialize from the darkness itself, and for a wild moment, Anna wondered if she was dreaming still. Then he spoke, and the dream shattered. "Miss Caldwell." The voice was deep, roughened by tobacco or trail dust, or both. Not the cultured tone she'd imagined from Everett's letters. This was a working man's voice, someone who spoke to horses more than people. "Yes." She stood, her legs barely holding her. Are you Samuel Turner?" He swung down from the saddle in one fluid motion, and Anna got her first good look at him. Where Everett's photograph showed a clean-shaven man with gentle features, Samuel Turner was all harsh angles and weathered skin. A dark beard covered the lower half of his face, and his eyes, she couldn't tell their color in the dim light, but they were intense, almost angry. "I am." He didn't come closer, keeping the horse between them like a barrier. "My cousin, Everett, he's in Helena, has been for near 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Anna had been traveling for 2 weeks, which meant he never intended to meet me. The words came out flat, emotionless. She was too tired for anger, too empty for tears. Samuel's jaw tightened. "I can't speak to his intentions, miss. All I know is he's sick. Lung fever, the doctor says. Might not." He trailed off, then started again. "I didn't know about you. About this arrangement." "Not until yesterday when young Tom came by, said Jim at the depot had a woman waiting. Described you, mentioned the name Turner, and I put it together. And you came." It wasn't a question. After 3 days of nothing, this stranger had heard about her and ridden through the night to find her. The kindness of it nearly broke her. "My family's name was used," Samuel said stiffly. "That makes it my responsibility." Responsibility. Not compassion, not kindness. Responsibility. Anna straightened her spine, finding reserves of pride she thought had been exhausted. "I don't need your charity, Mr. Turner. If you could perhaps direct me to the nearest town with a telegraph office, I'll wire back east. I'm sure I can—" She stopped. She couldn't. There was nothing back east but debt collectors and empty rooms. "The nearest telegraph is in Bozeman. 3 days' ride." Samuel studied her with those intense eyes. "When's the last time you ate a proper meal?" The question was so unexpected, so practical, that Anna nearly laughed. "I'm fine. That wasn't what I asked." They stared at each other across the lamplit platform, 2 strangers bound by a name and a broken promise. Finally, Anna's shoulders sagged. 3 days, before I got on the train in Bismarck." Samuel cursed, low and vicious. Everett always was a damn fool, but this— He cut himself off, running a hand through his dark hair. "All right. Here's what's going to happen. You're coming with me. I told you I don't need charity." "It's not charity." His voice was hard as the mountains surrounding them. "My cousin made promises using my family's name. Those promises are going to be kept one way or another. You came here for a place on Turner land, and that's what you'll have." "But Everett, Everett's dying, Miss Caldwell. The words were brutal in their simplicity. If he lives, it'll be a miracle, and even then, he won't be the man who wrote those letters. Lung fever takes everything out of a person, leaves them weak, broken. The homestead he promised you doesn't exist. He's been living on dreams and my charity for 2 years. Each word was a nail in the coffin of her hopes. Anna sank back onto her crate, her legs unable to hold her anymore. So it was all lies. Everything. Maybe not everything. Samuel's voice gentled, just slightly. Maybe he meant it when he wrote it. Everett always was good at meaning things, just not so good at doing them. And you? Anna looked up at him. What are you good at, Mr. Turner? He was quiet for a long moment, considering. Keeping my word. Working the land. Surviving. He paused. Not much else, if I'm honest. That's more than some people, Anna said, thinking of pretty letters and broken promises. Get your things, Samuel said abruptly. We're burning daylight. Where are we going? My place. The actual Turner Ranch, not whatever fantasy Everett sold you. It's not grand, just a cabin and some outbuildings, couple hundred head of cattle. But it's real, it's solid, and there's work needs doing if you're willing. Work. After 3 days of sitting, of waiting, of slowly dying of shame, the words sounded like salvation. I can work. Can you cook? Yes. Sew? Yes. Handle chickens, milk a cow, keep a kitchen garden? I can learn. He studied her for a long moment, and Anna had the feeling she was being weighed, measured, evaluated for something more than cooking and cleaning. Finally, he nodded. Get your things. Anna stood, reaching for her carpet bag and the small trunk that held everything she owned. Samuel was there before she could lift it, hefting the trunk easily. This all? Yes. Travel light. That's good. Means you know what's important. She didn't tell him it was all she had left. That knowing what's important and having nothing left to lose could look the same from the outside. Samuel strapped her trunk to his horse, then turned to her. You ride? A little. Back home, back east, I mean. This isn't back east. But he adjusted the stirrups, helped her mount with impersonal efficiency. Hold tight. It's a long way, and the trail's rough. He swung up behind her, his arms coming around to take the reins. Anna stiffened at the closeness. She'd never been this near to a man, could feel the heat of him through her cloak, smell leather and tobacco and something wild, like wind. Relax, he said quietly. I'm not Everett, Miss Caldwell. I don't make promises I won't keep, and I don't take what isn't offered. You're safe with me. Safe. Such a strange word after 3 days of being utterly exposed, utterly vulnerable, but something in his voice, in the solid presence of him, made her believe it. She relaxed incrementally, allowing herself to lean back slightly against his chest. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet, Samuel replied, urging the horse into motion. You haven't seen where I'm taking you. They rode away from the depot as the sun crested the mountains, painting the world gold and rose. Anna didn't look back. There was nothing there but an empty platform and broken dreams. Ahead, the trail wound into mountains she didn't know, toward a life she hadn't chosen, with a man who wasn't hers. But he was real. He was here. And after 3 days of nothing, that was everything. The horse picked its way carefully along the trail, and Anna found herself mesmerized by the landscape unfolding around them. Montana was nothing like Ohio, where home, former home, had been gentle hills and tamed fields. This was raw, savage beauty. Mountains clawed at the sky, their peaks still white with snow even in October. The valley spread out below them like a rumpled quilt, patches of gold grass and dark timber, silver threads of streams catching the morning light. It's beautiful, she said without thinking. Samuel made a sound that might have been agreement. Beautiful and harsh. This land doesn't forgive mistakes. Neither does life. She felt him shift behind her, perhaps surprised by her response. They rode in silence for a while, the only sounds the horse's hooves on stone, the creak of leather, the wind sighing through pine branches. It should have been awkward, this enforced intimacy with a stranger, but Anna found it oddly comforting. After 3 days of being looked at, pitied, judged, It was a relief to face forward, to not have to manage her expression or maintain her dignity. "Tell me about Everett," she said eventually. "The real Everett, not the one from the letters." Samuel was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Everett's my cousin on my father's side. Came to live with us when he was 12, after his parents died of cholera. He was always—" He paused, searching for words. "Delicate. Not weak exactly, just not made for this life. He wanted to be a gentleman rancher, the kind who has others do the work while he reads books and writes poetry. He wrote beautiful letters." "I'm sure he did." "Everett could always make words dance. Problem is, words don't string fence or brand cattle or survive a Montana winter." "And you? Can you make words dance?" "No, ma'am. I can barely make them walk in a straight line." Despite everything, Anna found herself almost smiling. "Yet you came for me." That speaks louder than any poetry. Don't make it more than it is. Like I said, family responsibility. But Anna heard something else in his voice, something he probably didn't mean to reveal. Loneliness, perhaps. Or maybe just the weight of being the one who always cleaned up others' messes, who kept promises others broke. The sun climbed higher, and with it came the heat of the day. October in Montana was a contradiction, freezing at night, warm enough to sweat at midday. Anna's traveling dress, wool appropriate for autumn in Ohio, became a torture. She could feel perspiration gathering under her corset, her collar sticking to her neck. "There's a stream up ahead," Samuel said, as if reading her discomfort. "We'll stop, water the horse." The stream was a revelation, clear, cold water tumbling over smooth stones, cottonwoods providing blessed shade. Samuel helped her down, his hands careful, impersonal at her waist. Anna wanted to throw herself into the water, to wash away 3 days of dust and shame, but she settled for kneeling at the bank, cupping water to drink, splashing her face and neck. "There's food in my saddlebags," Samuel said, busy with the horse. "Not much, but it's something." The not much turned out to be dried beef, hard biscuits, and dried apple slices. After 3 days of almost nothing, it tasted like a feast. Anna tried to eat slowly, with dignity, but her body betrayed her, hands shaking as she reached for more. "Easy," Samuel said, not unkindly. "Too much too fast will make you sick." He was sitting on a rock nearby, close enough to watch but far enough to give her space. In the full daylight, she could see him clearly for the first time. He was younger than she'd first thought, maybe 30, but life had carved lines around his eyes, silvered a few strands at his temples. His eyes were gray, like winter sky, and they missed nothing. "How old was Everett in that photograph?" Anna asked suddenly. "What photograph?" She pulled it from her pocket, handed it over. Samuel studied it, his expression darkening. "This is from before the war. He would have been, 17? 18? Before the war. The photograph was over 15 years old. Anna wanted to laugh or cry or scream. She'd fallen in love with a boy who no longer existed, if he ever had. How old is he now? 32, same as me." Samuel handed the photograph back. "We were born the same year, 3 months apart. People used to say we looked like brothers." Anna studied Samuel's weathered face, trying to see any resemblance to the smooth-faced boy in the photograph. Perhaps in the shape of the jaw, the set of the shoulders. But where the photograph promised gentleness, Samuel Turner was all hard edges and guarded spaces. What happened to him? To make him this way? "Life," Samuel said simply. "The war. Coming west. Wanting things he couldn't have, couldn't earn. Some people meet hardship and it makes them stronger. Others, it just makes them dream harder, like reality is something they can wish away." "And you? What did hardship make you?" He looked at her directly then, those gray eyes seeing too much. "Careful." They mounted up again, the sun now high overhead, beating down mercilessly. The trail wound upward, into timber that provided occasional relief. Samuel pointed out landmarks as they rode. That mountain was Chief Peak, that valley good for winter grazing, that distant smoke from another homestead 10 miles away. He was teaching her the shape of her new world, and Anna tried to memorize it all, to make it real, to make it hers. "Do you have family?" she asked. "Wife? Children?" "No." The word was final, closing that door, but after a moment he added, There was someone. Before. She married my neighbor while I was away fighting. They have 3 children now. I'm sorry. Don't be. She made the right choice. I wasn't. He paused. I wasn't who I was before the war. She knew it before I did. Anna understood that. She wasn't who she'd been before her parents died, before the debts, before the desperate letters to a stranger. Loss changed you at a molecular level, rearranged your very atoms into a different person wearing the same face. There, Samuel said suddenly, pointing. That's home. Anna looked where he indicated and saw a cabin nestled at the base of a foothill, smoke threading from its chimney. It was smaller than she'd imagined, but solidly built from good logs, with a proper porch and glass windows that caught the afternoon sun. A barn stood nearby, along with various outbuildings, fenced pastures spreading out like aprons from the main structures. Cattle dotted the grassland, and she could see horses in a closer paddock. It's not much, Samuel said, and for the first time she heard uncertainty in his voice. It's real, Anna replied. That's more than I had this morning. They rode down into the valley, and as they got closer, Anna could see the details. The kitchen garden gone mostly to seed, curtains in the windows, a rocking chair on the porch that spoke of evening contemplation. It was a bachelor's establishment, functional but lacking the softness a woman's hand might bring. But it was shelter, it was solid, and it was offered. A dog came running out, barking, tail wagging. That's Duke, Samuel said. More noise than bite. Duke circled the horse, clearly delighted his master was home. When Samuel helped Anna down, the dog came to investigate, sniffing her skirts with intense curiosity before apparently deciding she was acceptable. Welcome to the Turner Ranch, Samuel said formally. Such as it is. Anna stood in the yard, looking around, trying to reconcile this reality with the dreams she'd carried across half a continent. It wasn't what she'd imagined. The man beside her wasn't who she'd expected, but the sun was warm on her face, the dog was pushing his head under her hand for pets, and she wasn't sitting on a train platform anymore, waiting for nothing. Thank you, she said again, meaning it more than the first time. Samuel nodded, already turning to tend his horse. I'll show you the house. You can have the back room. It's small, but it's private. We'll figure out the rest as we go. The rest. Such a vague term for a completely undefined future. But Anna had learned something in those 3 days on the platform, those 3 nights under the cold stars. Sometimes vague was better than false certainty. Sometimes we'll figure it out was more honest than all the pretty promises in the world. She followed Samuel toward the cabin, Duke trotting beside her, and allowed herself one moment of grief for the dream that had died at the depot. Then she squared her shoulders and stepped into whatever came next. It wasn't the life she'd chosen, but it was life, and after 3 days of slowly disappearing, that was miracle enough. The inside of the cabin was exactly what she'd expected from a man living alone, clean enough, but sparse, utilitarian. The main room served as kitchen, dining, and living space, with a large fireplace dominating one wall. A ladder led to what must be a loft, and 2 doors opened off the back wall. That's my room, Samuel said, indicating the left door. This one's yours. The room was small, just big enough for a narrow bed, a washstand, and a trunk at the foot of the bed. But it had a window looking out toward the mountains, and the afternoon light made the simple space almost cheerful. It's perfect, Anna said, and meant it. After 3 nights in the open, 4 walls and a roof felt like luxury. There's a necessary house out back, Samuel said, clearly uncomfortable with the domestic details. Water comes from the well. I'll show you everything properly tomorrow, but for now you should rest. You look ready to drop. She was. The adrenaline that had carried her this far was fading, leaving bone-deep exhaustion in its wake. But there was something she needed to know first. What am I to you, Mr. Turner? I mean, what arrangement? She fumbled for words. I came here to be married. Obviously, that's not, but I need to know what you expect. Samuel was quiet for a moment, his face unreadable. For now, you're my housekeeper. Cook, help with the chickens and garden, mending, that sort of thing. In exchange, you have room, board, and wages. Let's say $10 a month. It was generous, more than fair, but it wasn't what she'd traveled 2,000 miles for. And later? Later depends on a lot of things, whether Everett lives, what he has to say for himself if he does, whether you want to stay once you see what winter here is like. He paused. Whether we can stand each other's company for more than a week. It was honest, at least. No promises, no pretty words, just practical reality. All right, Anna said. That's fair. Good. He turned to go, then stopped. Miss Caldwell? I know this isn't what you wanted. I know you've been wronged and badly, but I want you to know you're safe here. Whatever else happens or doesn't happen, you have my word on that. His word. From another man, that might mean nothing, but Anna had a feeling Samuel Turner's word was currency more valuable than gold in these parts. Thank you, she said for the third time that day. I believe you. He nodded and left her alone. Anna sat on the narrow bed, testing the mattress. Straw tick, but clean and decent. She should unpack, should go explore her new domain, should do something productive. Instead, she lay down fully clothed and fell into the deepest sleep she'd had in months. She woke to darkness and the smell of cooking meat. Disoriented, she sat up, her body protesting the movement. Through the window, she could see stars, more stars than she'd ever imagined existed. The door was cracked open, and lamplight spilled through. Anna smoothed her hair as best she could, straightened her wrinkled dress, and ventured out. Samuel was at the stove, his back to her, stirring something in a large pot. The table was set for two, tin plates but clean and actual napkins, as if he'd made an effort. Hungry? He asked without turning around. Starving, she admitted. Sit. It's almost ready. The meal was simple. Beef stew, fresh bread that must have been baked that day, canned peaches for dessert. But Anna couldn't remember anything ever tasting better. They ate in companionable silence, both too tired or too wary for conversation. Finally, as Samuel cleared the plates, Anna said, You baked bread. Mrs. Henderson from the neighboring spread brought it by yesterday. She'll be pleased to know there's a woman here now. She's been trying to civilize me for 5 years. And how's that going? About as well as you'd expect. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. She'll probably come calling tomorrow. Once word gets out you're here. Word gets out. Anna hadn't considered that. The gossip, the speculation, the assumptions people would make about a woman living with a man she wasn't married to. What will you tell people? About me being here. Samuel considered this. The truth, mostly. That you came to marry my cousin, he took sick, and you're housekeeping until things get sorted. Let them make of it what they will. Won't that damage your reputation? This time he did smile, just slightly. Miss Caldwell, my reputation is that I'm unsociable, stubborn, and likely to die a bachelor. Having a housekeeper won't change any of that. You're not unsociable. You're talking to me. You're not society. You're... He paused, seeming to search for words. You're just here. It shouldn't have been comforting being reduced to just here, but somehow it was. No expectations, no pretense, just presence. I should warn you, Samuel continued, winter's coming. November at the latest, we'll have snow. It gets brutal, below zero for weeks at a time, snow up to the roof sometimes. If you're going to leave, you need to decide soon, before the passes close. Leave for where? Anna thought, but didn't say. Instead, she asked, What about you? Do you leave for the winter? This is my home, Miss Caldwell. I don't leave. The way he said it, like the mountains themselves might say it, made Anna understand something fundamental about Samuel Turner. He was rooted here, part of the land as much as the timber and stone. Everett had promised her a husband, but what she'd found was something else entirely. A man who belonged to a place so completely that even his loneliness couldn't drive him from it. Then I'll stay too, she heard herself say, through winter. We can reassess in spring. Samuel studied her across the table, those gray eyes measuring again. You sure? You haven't seen a Montana winter. It's not just cold, it's isolation, darkness, the kind of silence that drives some people mad. I've been isolated since my parents died. I've been in darkness since I got on that train. And silence. She thought of 3 days on a platform, the whole world passing by without stopping. Silence and I are old friends. All right, then. He stood, moving to a cupboard. We should discuss practical matters. Supply runs, wood cutting, preparing for snow. But that's tomorrow's concern. He pulled out a bottle, poured 2 small glasses of something amber. Tonight, we drink to surviving. Just surviving? In Montana, Miss Caldwell, sometimes that's the same as winning. She took the glass, whiskey, burning and warming in equal measure. They toasted silently, and Anna felt something shift, settle. This wasn't the beginning she'd planned, but it was a beginning nonetheless. Later, alone in her small room, she unpacked her few belongings. Her mother's Bible, her father's watch, the 3 dresses that comprised her wardrobe, her sewing kit, a handful of books she couldn't bear to sell. At the bottom of the trunk, wrapped in tissue, was the wedding dress she'd made herself. White muslin with tiny pearl buttons, each one sewn with dreams of the day she'd wear it. She lifted it out, held it up to the lamplight. It was a beautiful dress, impractical for ranch life but lovingly crafted. For a moment, she considered burning it, watching all those foolish dreams turn to smoke. Instead, she folded it carefully and placed it back in the trunk. Maybe she'd never wear it. Maybe she'd cut it up for fabric when times got lean. Or maybe, somewhere down the line, there'd be a reason to shake it out, air those dreams again. Outside her window, a wolf howled, distant but distinct. Anna shivered, pulled her shawl tighter. This wasn't Ohio, wasn't civilization, wasn't anything she'd known before. But Samuel was right. She'd survived. The woman who'd stepped off that train 4 days ago would have crumbled at the first disappointment. The woman she was now, the one who'd waited through 3 days of nothing, who'd ridden through wilderness with a stranger, who'd chosen to stay when she could run. That woman was someone new, someone harder, someone who might just make it through a Montana winter. She blew out the lamp and lay in the darkness, listening to the cabin settle around her. Through the thin walls, she could hear Samuel moving about in his room, the creak of his bed as he settled for the night. Strange to be so close to a man she'd met just this morning, to trust him with her safety, her reputation, her future. But trust was all she had left. That and the stubborn determination not to let Everett's betrayal be the end of her story. Tomorrow, she'd learn the rhythm of this place. She'd meet the chickens, explore the garden, begin earning her keep. She'd become part of the Turner Ranch, even if she'd never be a Turner herself. And maybe, in time, she'd stop feeling like she was waiting for something and start feeling like she'd arrived. The wolf howled again, closer this time, and Anna found herself thinking of Samuel's words. Beautiful and harsh. This land doesn't forgive mistakes. Well, she'd already made the biggest mistake of her life, trusting a stranger's letters. Everything from here on was recovery, redemption, rebuilding. She closed her eyes and, for the first time in months, didn't dream of silver-toed boots or train platforms, or the life she'd lost. Instead, she dreamed of mountains and clear streams, of a dog named Duke and bread that tasted like kindness, of a man who kept his word even when the words were few. It wasn't the dream she'd started with, but maybe that was the point. Maybe the dreams that mattered were the ones you found after the pretty ones shattered, the ones built from whatever pieces were left, mortared with necessity and dried by the harsh Montana sun. In his room, separated by just a wall of pine, Samuel lay awake listening to the night sounds, aware of the woman's presence in his home, like a new piece of furniture he kept bumping into. He'd acted on instinct, riding to get her, bringing her here. Family responsibility, he'd told her, and himself. But lying in the darkness, he could admit there was more to it. He'd been alone so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to set a table for 2, to have someone to say goodnight to hear another person breathing in the darkness. It was dangerous, this sudden not aloneness. He'd built his life around solitude, made peace with it. Now here was this woman with her Ohio manners and her broken dreams, disrupting his carefully constructed emptiness. She was nothing like Mary, the woman he'd lost to his neighbor. Mary had been sunshine and laughter, all lightness and easy joy. Anna Caldwell was something else, steel wrapped in courtesy, pride holding her upright when everything else had fallen. When she'd sat on that crate for 3 days, waiting for a man who'd never come, she'd shown the kind of stubborn endurance this land required. Most would have given up after the first day, sought comfort, begged for help. She'd just sat there, spine straight, and waited as if she could make Everett appear through sheer force of will. He shouldn't admire that. Shouldn't admire her. She was his cousin's intended, a responsibility, a problem to be solved. But when she'd looked at the mountains and called them beautiful, when she'd said silence was her old friend, when she'd chosen to stay through winter without even knowing what that meant, something in him had recognized something in her. Two damaged people who'd learned to function anyway, to keep moving when stopping would mean dissolving entirely. Tomorrow would bring complications. Mrs. Henderson would definitely come calling, full of questions and barely veiled judgment. The other ranchers would talk. His carefully maintained isolation would be breached. But tonight, with the wolf calling and the wind in the pines, Samuel allowed himself one moment of something that wasn't quite hope, but wasn't despair either. Maybe Everett's cruelty had delivered something unexpected. Maybe this woman who'd waited 3 days for nothing would find something here worth staying for. Maybe the Turner Ranch would finally be more than just a place where Samuel Turner waited to die. But those were tomorrow's questions. Tonight, there was just the darkness, the mountain standing guard, and two strangers under the same roof, each nursing wounds that might never fully heal but might, given time and silence and enough Montana winters, finally scar over enough to bear touching. The rooster's crow pulled Anna from sleep just as the first gray light touched her window. For a moment she lay still, disoriented by the unfamiliar sounds, the creak of wood settling, the distant lowing of cattle, the whisper of wind through pines. Then memory crashed back. The depot, the wait, Samuel Turner's weathered face in the lamplight. She was here, on a ranch 30 miles from anywhere, with a man she'd known less than a day. She dressed quickly in her plainest dress, a brown calico that had seen better years but would serve for work. Her fingers fumbled with the buttons, stiff from cold. The fire in the main room must have died during the night. Through the thin walls, she heard Samuel moving about, the clank of the stove door, the scrape of a coffee pot. When she emerged from her room, he was already dressed for the day, pouring coffee into 2 tin cups. He glanced up, nodded a greeting, and pushed 1 cup across the table toward her. The coffee was black, bitter, strong enough to strip paint, but it was hot, and Anna was grateful for it. "Sleep well?" he asked, more courtesy than curiosity. "Yes, thank you." She wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "What needs doing first?" Samuel studied her over his coffee. "You know anything about chickens?" "I kept them back home. Before." "Good. Coop's out back. They'll need feeding, eggs gathered. After that, we'll see about the garden, what can be salvaged before frost." He paused. "You might want an apron. Ranch work isn't kind to clothes." Anna thought of her 3 dresses, already worn thin. "I'll manage." They worked through the morning with little conversation, Samuel showing her the routine of the place. The chicken coop housed a dozen hens and 1 aggressive rooster that Anna quickly learned to respect. The garden was indeed mostly gone to seed, but she found late tomatoes clinging to withered vines, some squash that had survived neglect, herbs that might be dried for winter use. "This could be brought back," she said, kneeling among the ruined bean poles. "With work. Come spring, this could feed us well." "Never had much luck with it," Samuel admitted. "Plants don't seem to like me much." "They just need attention, consistency, someone checking on them every day, noticing what they need." "Like people, then." Anna looked up, surprised by the observation, but Samuel was already walking toward the barn, the moment passing before she could respond. It was near noon when they heard the wagon approaching. Samuel straightened from where he'd been showing Anna the root cellar, his expression tightening. "That'll be Mrs. Henderson. Remember what I said? Let them make of it what they will." Mrs. Henderson was exactly what Anna had expected. A frontier matron with sharp eyes and sharper curiosity. Her gray hair pulled into a severe bun, her dress practical but clean. She climbed down from her wagon with surprising agility for her age, a covered basket in her hands. "Samuel Turner," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to being listened to. "When Tom Bradley said you'd brought a woman home from the depot, I didn't believe it. You, who won't even come to the harvest dance." "Mrs. Henderson." Samuel's voice was carefully neutral. "This is Miss Anna Caldwell. She's helping with the house." Those sharp eyes turned to Anna, taking in everything from her worn dress to her uncalloused hands. "Miss Caldwell. From back east, I'd wager." "Ohio, ma'am." And you've come all this way to keep house? The question was loaded with suspicion. Anna lifted her chin. I've come to work, Mrs. Henderson. Mr. Turner has been kind enough to offer me employment. Employment? Mrs. Henderson's tone suggested what she thought of that story. Well, I've brought a pie. Apple. Thought you might need something welcoming. She thrust the basket at Anna. You do cook, I hope? Yes, ma'am. Good. Samuel here would live on beef and beans if left to himself. Man needs proper meals. She turned back to Samuel. You coming to town for supplies before the snow? Next week, probably. Bring Miss Caldwell. She'll need things. Proper winter clothes, for one thing. That dress won't last a Montana November. Without waiting for a response, Mrs. Henderson climbed back onto her wagon. I'll spread the word you've got help up here. Maybe now you'll act like a civilized person and come to Sunday dinners. After she left, Anna and Samuel stood in the yard, the dust from her wagon still settling. Well, Anna said finally, that went better than expected. Samuel snorted, the closest thing to a laugh she'd heard from him. Give it time. By sunset, half the valley will think we're married, the other half will think you're a Scarlet Woman, and Mrs. Henderson will be organizing a quilting bee to investigate further. And what will you tell them? Nothing. I don't explain myself to anyone. He started toward the house, then stopped. But you should know it might make things difficult for you. The talk. Mr. Turner, I sat on a train platform for 3 days while everyone watched and whispered. I've already been the subject of talk. At least here, I have walls to put between me and the whispers. That evening, after a supper of beef stew, Samuel seemed to know how to cook exactly 3 things. Anna sat by the fire mending one of his shirts. The domestic scene felt strange, like she was playing a role in someone else's life. Samuel was at the table, working on what looked like account books, his forehead creased with concentration. You can read and write, Anna observed. He looked up. That surprises you? No, many men out here can't. My mother was a school teacher before she married. She made sure Everett and I could read, write, and figure. Said it was the only way to keep from being cheated in this world. Was she right? About being cheated? Number. That happens whether you can read or not, but it helps to see it coming. Anna bent back to her sewing, thinking about that. After a while, she said, Tell me about the war. Samuel's hand stilled on the page. Why? Because it changed you. You said so. And if I'm going to live here, work here, I should understand what shaped this place, what shaped you. He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I was 19 when I enlisted. Thought it would be an adventure. Thought I'd be home by Christmas. He laughed, bitter and short. 4 years later, I came back missing pieces I didn't know I had. Not physical pieces, I was lucky that way, but something inside. The part that trusted easy, hoped easy, believed things would work out. Is that why you didn't marry? You're Mary? Part of it. Mary wanted the boy who'd left, not the man who came back. Can't blame her for that. I wanted him too. He closed the account book. What about you? No sweetheart back in Ohio? No, I was always the practical daughter, the one who helped with the household accounts, who knew which merchants gave fair prices. My sister was the pretty one. She married at 17, moved to Chicago. After our parents died, she wrote once to say she was sorry, but her husband couldn't take on my debts. Anna's needle paused. That's when I answered Everett's advertisement, when I realized even blood didn't guarantee belonging. You could write to her. Let her know where you are. No. Some bridges burn themselves. All you can do is watch the smoke and walk away. They sat in companionable silence after that, the fire popping, the wind picking up outside. It was starting to feel like routine, this evening quiet together. Dangerous, Anna thought. It would be too easy to mistake this for something it wasn't, to build another set of dreams on a foundation that didn't exist. The next days fell into a pattern. Up with the rooster, coffee in the gray dawn, then the endless work of the ranch. Anna learned to milk the temperamental cow Samuel called Bessie, though her first attempts left more milk on the ground than in the pail. She learned the personality of each chicken, which horses would eat from her hand, which parts of the fence needed watching. Her hands blistered, then calloused. Her dresses grew more stained, more patched, and slowly, carefully, she learned Samuel Turner. She learned that he sang to the horses when he thought no one was listening, old hymns and army songs in a rough baritone. She learned that he favored his left leg on cold mornings, an old injury he never spoke about. She learned that he read every night before sleep, working through a small library of books that ranged from cattle breeding to ancient history. She learned that his silences weren't empty, but full, containing whole conversations he'd never speak aloud. A week into her stay, he announced they were going to town. "You need supplies." "Winter clothes," like Mrs. Henderson said. "And I need to know if." He trailed off, jaw tightening. If Everett was dead. He didn't say it, but Anna heard it anyway. The ride to town took most of the day, sitting beside Samuel on the wagon seat, bumping over roads that were more suggestion than reality. They talked little, but the silence was comfortable now, shaped by shared meals and shared work. The town, when it finally appeared, was smaller than Anna had expected. One main street with a general store, a saloon, a church, and a handful of other buildings. But it was civilization, or the frontier version of it, and after a week of isolation, it felt overwhelming. Samuel pulled up at the general store. "Get what you need," he said, pressing money into her hand. "Don't be proud about it. Winter doesn't care about pride." Inside, the store was cramped and smelled of pickles and leather and tobacco. The proprietor's wife, Mrs. Dalton, descended on Anna immediately, full of questions disguised as helpfulness. "You're the young lady staying at the Turner place." "From Ohio, I heard." "Yes, ma'am." "And you're housekeeping?" The pause was weighted with insinuation. "Yes, ma'am." Mrs. Dalton waited for more, but Anna had learned Samuel's trick of silence. Let them fill it with their own assumptions. Finally, frustrated, Mrs. Dalton turned to business. "You'll need flannel petticoats for winter, wool stockings, a proper coat. That cloak won't do past October." Anna let herself be outfitted, wincing internally at each price. Samuel had been generous, but she hated spending money that wasn't truly hers. She selected carefully, practical items only, nothing frivolous. A warm coat, sturdy boots, flannel for undergarments she could make herself, wool fabric for a winter dress. "No ribbons?" Mrs. Dalton asked. "No pretties? A young woman should have some nice things." "I'm not there for prettiness, Mrs. Dalton. I'm there to work." The woman's expression suggested she had opinions about what kind of work that might be, but she said nothing more. Anna was loading her purchases into the wagon when Samuel returned from wherever he'd gone. The telegraph office, she suspected. His face was grim. "Well?" she asked quietly. "He's alive." "Barely. Doctor says his lungs are ruined. He'll never be strong again." Samuel helped her up onto the seat. "There's more. He's been writing to other women, 3 that they know of, making promises, taking money some of them sent." Anna felt something cold settle in her stomach. Money. For the wedding, supposedly. For setting up house. Samuel's knuckles were white on the reins. "He's been living off it in Helena, gambling most of it away. So she wasn't special, wasn't chosen. Was just one of many desperate women Everett had deceived. Somehow, that made it both better and worse. What will happen to them? The other women? Don't know, not my responsibility." He glanced at her. "You're different. You actually came. That makes you my problem." My problem. She should be offended, but instead she found it oddly comforting. Better to be someone's problem than no one's anything. They were halfway home when the storm hit. It came out of nowhere, the way mountain weather did. One moment clear, the next rain driving sideways, turning the road to mud. Samuel cursed, fighting to keep the wagon on what passed for a track. "There's a line shack about a mile up," he shouted over the rain. "We'll have to wait it out." The line shack was barely more than a shed, but it was dry. They brought the horses in too. There was just room, and suddenly the space felt impossibly small. Anna was soaked through, shivering, her new coat still in the wagon. "Here." Samuel shrugged out of his own coat, wrapping it around her shoulders. It smelled of leather and tobacco and him, and Anna had to fight the urge to burrow into it. "You'll freeze," she protested. "I've been colder." He was building a fire in the tiny stove, his movements efficient despite the cramped space. "We'll be here a while. This kind of rain doesn't stop quick." The fire caught, throwing dancing shadows on the rough walls. They sat on the floor, there was nowhere else, sharing the packet of food Samuel had brought. The storm raged outside, making the little shack feel like a boat in rough seas. "I'm sorry," Samuel said suddenly. "About Everett. About all of it. You deserved better." "Did I?" Anna pulled his coat tighter. "I was desperate enough to agree to marry a stranger. Maybe I got exactly what I deserved." "Don't say that." His voice was fierce. "Being desperate doesn't mean you deserve to be lied to. Being hopeful doesn't make you a fool." "Doesn't it?" I believed every word he wrote. Built a whole future on pretty sentences. "You believed because you're capable of trust. That's not weakness. That's strength most people lose out here." They were sitting close, forced by the small space, and Anna was suddenly aware of him in a way she hadn't been before. The breadth of his shoulders, the way his hands moved, sure and capable. The way he looked at her, like she was something more than a problem to be solved. "Why did you really come for me?" she asked. It wasn't just family responsibility. He was quiet for a long moment, watching the fire. "I've been alone a long time. Got used to it. Told myself I preferred it. Then Tom described you, sitting on that platform for 3 days, too proud to beg, too stubborn to quit, and I thought..." He paused. "I thought maybe I understood that. The stubborn part. The being alone even when you're surrounded by people. And now? Now that I'm here?" He turned to look at her fully, those gray eyes intense in the firelight. "Now I think maybe Everett's cruelty brought something unexpected. The air between them changed, charged with possibility." Anna found herself leaning toward him, drawn by something stronger than reason. But then thunder cracked overhead, breaking the moment, and Samuel stood abruptly. "Rain's stopping. We should go." The ride home was silent, but it was a different kind of silence, full of things unsaid, moments unclaimed. Anna knew they'd crossed some invisible line in that shack, acknowledged something that couldn't be taken back. That night, lying in her narrow bed, she could still smell his coat, could still feel the heat of him beside her in that tiny space. It was dangerous, this feeling. She'd come here for one man and was falling for another. But Everett had been a dream, words on paper. Samuel was real, his silences, his rare smiles, his steady presence. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Tom Bradley rode up just after breakfast, his young face serious. "Mr. Turner, sir? Got a message from Helena, your cousin. He passed yesterday evening. Doctor said his lungs just gave out." Anna felt the world shift, reorganize itself around this new fact. Everett was dead. The man she'd traveled 2,000 miles to marry was gone, and she felt nothing. No grief, no relief, just a strange emptiness where something should be. Samuel's face was stone. "Thank you for letting me know, Tom. Tell whoever needs telling that I'll handle the arrangements." After Tom left, they stood in the yard, not looking at each other. "I should go," Anna said quietly. "There's no reason for me to stay now." "Isn't there?" The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. Samuel turned to face her, his expression more open than she'd ever seen it. "I can't offer you pretty words like Everett. I don't know how to court or charm, but I can offer you truth. This place, this life, it's hard, lonely, sometimes brutal, but it's real. And you make it less empty." "Samuel." She used his first name without thinking, saw how it affected him. "Stay," he said simply, "not as my housekeeper, not as my cousins intended, just stay." It wasn't a declaration of love, wasn't a proposal, was just a request for presence, for the possibility of something more. But from Samuel Turner, a man who spoke so little, it was everything. "All right," Anna said. "I'll stay." The relief on his face was brief but unmistakable. Then he was back to business, talking about preparing for winter, about the work that needed doing. But something fundamental had shifted. They weren't strangers anymore, weren't just two damaged people sharing space. They were something else, something without a name yet, but with the potential to become. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Anna sewing, Samuel reading, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. The desperate letter to a stranger, the endless train ride, those 3 days on the platform. All of it leading not to Everett, but to this cabin, this man, this life she hadn't chosen, but might choose now, given the chance. "Read to me," she said impulsively. Samuel looked up, surprised. "What? You're always reading." "Share it. Read aloud." He hesitated, then began, his rough voice softening the words of Homer's Odyssey. Anna let the ancient story wash over her, tales of journey and homecoming, of being lost and finding your way. Appropriate, she thought. She'd come west seeking a husband and found something else, a partner, perhaps. Someone who understood that sometimes the best you could do was survive. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, surviving could turn into something like living. The fire crackled, the wind sang through the pines, and Samuel's voice carried on, weaving stories in the darkness. Anna set aside her sewing and just listened, letting herself imagine a future that wasn't about promises or dreams, but about this. Quiet evenings, shared work, the slow building of trust between two people who'd learned not to trust easily. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall, earlier than expected, covering the harsh landscape in temporary softness. Winter was coming, with all its challenges and isolation. But inside the cabin, in the circle of firelight, Anna felt something she hadn't felt since her parents died, the beginning of home. Not the home she'd planned, not the one Everett had promised, but something better because it was real, built on truth rather than pretty lies. "Keep reading," she said when Samuel paused, and he did, his voice carrying them through the night, through the storm, toward whatever morning would bring. They were no longer waiting, not for trains, not for impossible dreams, not for people who would never come. They were here, present, building something moment by moment, word by word, season by season. The snow fell harder, blanketing the world in white, erasing the paths that had brought them here. By morning, they would be snowed in, forced to rely on each other even more. But that was tomorrow's challenge. Tonight, there was just this: the fire, the story, the two of them learning how to be less alone. Samuel reached the end of a chapter and looked up, finding Anna watching him. Their eyes met and held, saying things that wouldn't be spoken for weeks, maybe months. But the words weren't necessary yet. They had time now. All the time winter would give them, to learn each other's silences, to build something lasting from the ruins of what they'd each lost. "Another chapter?" Samuel asked. "Yes," Anna said, settling deeper into her chair, pulling her shawl close. "Keep going." And he did, reading on into the night while the snow fell and the fire burned and two broken people began the slow, careful work of becoming whole. The snow that had begun falling that night didn't stop for 3 days. Anna woke each morning to find the world transformed deeper into white, the familiar landmarks of the ranch disappearing under smooth drifts. Samuel worked tirelessly to keep paths clear to the barn and outbuildings, but by the 3rd day, even he admitted defeat. "We're snowed in proper now," he said, stomping snow from his boots at the door. His face was red from cold and exertion. "Won't be getting to town for a while." Anna looked up from the stove where she was stirring a pot of beans. "How long is a while?" "Could be a week, could be a month. Depends on whether this is just an early storm or the beginning of real winter." He hung his coat by the fire to dry. "Hope you meant it when you said you'd stay." She had meant it, but the reality of being truly isolated with him was different from the idea of it. The cabin felt smaller with snow pressed against the windows. The world shrunk down to these few rooms and the man who filled them with his presence. That evening, as they finished supper, Samuel surprised her by pulling out a worn deck of cards. "Do you play?" "My father taught me poker," Anna admitted, though Mother never approved. "Poker it is, then." He dealt with practiced efficiency. "What stakes?" "We could play for chores." "Loser does dishes for a week." Samuel's mouth quirked in what was almost a smile. "You're confident." "I learned from a man who played riverboat gamblers and won." She lost the first hand spectacularly, misreading Samuel's stone face. But by the third hand, she was beginning to see the tells. The way his thumb moved when he had a good hand, the slight tension in his jaw when he was bluffing. By the fifth hand, she won, laying down a full house with satisfaction. "You hustled me," Samuel said, but there was admiration in his voice. "You assumed a woman from Ohio couldn't play cards. That's not hustling, that's taking advantage of poor judgment." This time he did smile, full and genuine, and it transformed his face. Anna felt her heart skip, actually skip, like she was some green girl instead of a woman who'd already had her dreams broken once. "Another game?" he asked. They played until the candles burned low, the stakes getting increasingly ridiculous. Who would milk Bessie in the morning? Who got the last piece of cornbread? Who had to read aloud after dinner? Anna won more than she lost, and each victory brought something new from Samuel, a low chuckle, a shake of his head, once even a laugh that made Duke lift his head from his spot by the fire. "Where'd you really learn to play like that?" he asked as they put the cards away. "My father ran a dry goods store. The traveling salesman would play cards in the back room after hours. Father would bring me sometimes, said it was good to learn how men think when they believe they're winning." She paused, remembering. "He said the most dangerous player wasn't the one with the best cards, but the one who knew when to fold." "Smart man." "He was. He would have liked you." Samuel looked surprised. "Why?" "You're honest." He valued that above everything. Said an honest man was harder to find than gold in California. They were standing close, the table between them, and Anna could see the question in his eyes, the same question that had been there since that day in the line shack. But again, the moment passed, and they went to their separate rooms with nothing more said. The snow continued for another 2 days. They fell into a routine of closeness, working together to keep the animals fed and watered, cooking meals side by side, spending evenings by the fire. Samuel taught her chess, which she was terrible at, too impatient for the long strategy. She taught him to bake bread properly, not the dense bricks he'd been making. "You have to be gentle with it," she said, guiding his hands in the kneading. "Like you're persuading it, not forcing it." His hands under hers were warm, calloused, careful. "I'm not good at persuading." "You persuaded me to stay." That wasn't persuasion. That was just asking. Sometimes that's all the persuasion someone needs, just to be asked. On the 5th day, they ran low on firewood from the pile by the door. Samuel would have to dig his way to the woodshed, a task that would take hours in the deep snow. Anna insisted on helping. "You'll freeze," he protested. "I'll freeze if we run out of wood too." Better to work and stay warm. They dug together, taking turns with the shovel, Anna clearing what Samuel broke loose. It was exhausting work, and more than once she thought about those other women Everett had written to, wondered if any of them had found themselves digging through Montana snow for a man who wasn't even theirs. They were almost to the woodshed when Anna's foot slipped on ice hidden beneath the snow. She fell hard, her ankle twisting under her, crying out before she could stop herself. Samuel was beside her instantly, his hands gentle as he checked the injury. "Not broken," he said with relief, "but sprained bad. Can you stand?" She tried, gasped at the pain. Without hesitation, Samuel lifted her, carrying her like she weighed nothing. Anna wrapped her arms around his neck, her face pressed against his shoulder, breathing in the scent of him, wood smoke and coffee, and something essentially male. Inside, he settled her in the chair by the fire, then knelt to remove her boot, his fingers incredibly gentle. The intimacy of it, his hands on her ankle, her stocking-covered foot in his lap, made her breath catch. "I need to wrap it," he said, his voice rougher than usual, "to keep the swelling down." He found cloth, wrapped her ankle with the same care he showed with injured animals. When he was done, his hand lingered on her calf for just a moment before he pulled away. "Thank you," Anna whispered. "You shouldn't have been out there. This work, this life, it's too hard for you. Don't." Her voice was sharp. "Don't decide what's too hard for me. I've survived worse than a twisted ankle. Have you?" He was still kneeling before her, looking up with those intense gray eyes. "Have you survived being completely alone in a blizzard? Have you survived wolves when the cattle are starving and they get brave enough to come close? Have you survived the kind of cold that kills in minutes if you make one mistake? No, Anna admitted, but I've survived other things. My parents dying 3 months apart, losing everything to debts I didn't know existed, having my sister turn her back on me, writing to a stranger because I had no other choice, sitting on that platform for 3 days while my dignity died by inches. I've survived different kinds of cold, Samuel, the kind that comes from inside, that no amount of fire can warm. He was looking at her like he'd never seen her before. Anna? It was the first time he'd used just her name, without the formal miss. I'm not fragile, she continued. I'm not some eastern flower that's going to wilt at the first frost. I chose to stay, not because I have nowhere else to go, but because... She stopped, suddenly aware of what she'd been about to say. Because why? His voice was barely above a whisper. You know why. The air between them crackled with tension. Samuel reached up, his hand cupping her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. Say it. Because of you, she breathed. Because when you look at me, I don't feel like a fool who believed pretty lies. I feel like someone worth riding through the night for. He kissed her then, rising up on his knees, his mouth claiming hers with a hunger that spoke of long loneliness, of want denied too long. Anna's hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, pouring all her own loneliness, her own want, into the kiss. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Samuel rested his forehead against hers. This changes things. Everything's been changing since the moment you found me on that platform. I mean, it changes what I can offer you, what I want to offer you. He pulled back to look at her. I'm not Everett. I can't give you pretty words or romantic gestures, but I can give you partnership, respect, a life built on something real. Are you asking me to marry you? I'm asking you to think about it, to be sure. Because if you say yes, that's it for me. There won't be anyone else, ever. The intensity in his voice made her shiver. This wasn't a proposal born of convenience or propriety. This was Samuel Turner laying himself bare, offering her not just his name, but his whole self, damaged and scarred as he was. I need time, Anna said honestly. Not because I don't know how I feel, but because I want to be sure I'm choosing you for you, not just because you're not Everett. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Time you'll have. Winter's just starting. The next days passed in a new kind of tension, an awareness that hummed between them. They were careful not to touch, knowing that one touch would lead to another kiss, and another kiss would lead to decisions that needed more thought. But the awareness was there in every glance, every accidental brush of hands, every evening spent in companionable silence. Anna's ankle healed slowly, keeping her confined to the cabin more than she liked. She spent the time making the place more homely, sewing curtains from fabric Samuel had stored away, organizing his meager kitchen supplies, mending everything that needed mending. It was domestic in a way that should have felt presumptuous, but Samuel watched her work with something like wonder, as if he'd never imagined his space could be softened this way. One evening, as she was hemming the new curtains, Samuel spoke from his chair by the fire. The snow's letting up. I could get to town tomorrow if you need anything. Do I need anything? He was quiet for a moment. There's a preacher in town, Reverend Mills. If you say yes, he could come out here. Make it official. Anna's needle stilled. You've been thinking about this. Haven't been able to think about much else, he admitted. Every night, I lie in that room, knowing you're just on the other side of the wall, and I think about what it would be like if you were... He stopped, color rising in his weathered cheeks. If I were yours, Anna finished softly. Yes. She set aside her sewing, moved to stand before his chair. Samuel Turner, I need you to understand something. I'm not looking to be anyone's possession, not looking to trade one form of dependence for another. That's not what I meant. I know. She placed her hand over his. But I need to say this. If I marry you, when I marry you, it'll be as your partner, equal. I'll work beside you, not behind you. I'll have opinions and voice them. I'll expect to be heard, to be valued for more than cooking and cleaning. Samuel turned his hand to grip hers. Anna, you've been my equal since the moment you chose to stay through winter. Maybe even before that, when you sat on that platform for 3 days and refused to break. I'm not looking for a servant. I'm looking for someone strong enough to build a life with me in this hard place. Then yes. The simple word hung between them for a heartbeat before Samuel pulled her down into his lap, kissing her with a fervor that made her first kiss seem tame. This time she didn't pull back, didn't resist the heat building between them. His hands were in her hair, her arms around his neck, and for long moments there was nothing but the two of them and the wanting that had been building for weeks. When? Samuel asked when they finally broke apart, both breathless. Soon. Before I lose my nerve or you come to your senses. Never happen, he said firmly. Go to town tomorrow. Bring back the preacher. In this snow? I've waited my whole life for something real, Anna. Now that it's here, I don't want to wait another day. She kissed him again, soft and sweet this time. All right. Tomorrow. That night, Anna lay awake thinking about the strange path that had brought her here. If Everett had met her at the depot, she'd be in Helena now, married to a man she didn't know, living a lie built on lies. Instead, she was here, in this cabin that had become home, about to marry a man who'd shown her more honesty in a few weeks than Everett had in all his letters. The next morning dawned clear and bright, the kind of winter day that made the snow sparkle like diamonds. Samuel had already broken a path to the barn and was hitching up the sleigh he'd pulled from storage. Roads will be better with runners than wheels, he explained, and faster. We can be there and back before dark if we leave now. They bundled into the sleigh, Anna wrapped in buffalo robes, and set off across the white world. The mountains rose around them, magnificent in their winter dress, and Anna felt a surge of something that might have been happiness. This wild, beautiful place was going to be her home. This quiet, complicated man was going to be her husband. In town, their arrival caused a stir. Samuel Turner, the hermit rancher, had brought his mysterious housekeeper to town. The speculation was immediate and intense, but Samuel ignored it all, striding directly to the small parsonage beside the church. Reverend Mills was a thin, elderly man with kind eyes and a practical manner. Mr. Turner, Miss Caldwell, Anna supplied. Soon to be Turner. The Reverend's eyebrows rose. I see. And when were you thinking? Today, Samuel said firmly. Now, if possible. Well, that's rather sudden. Perhaps we should discuss. Reverend, Anna interrupted gently. I came here to marry. The man I was supposed to marry is dead. Mr. Turner has offered me an honorable alternative. We're both of age, both willing. What more needs discussing? The Reverend looked between them, perhaps seeing something in their faces that convinced him. Very well. Let me get my wife to witness. The church? Here's fine, Samuel said. We don't need ceremony. But Anna found herself disagreeing. The church? Please. If we're doing this, I'd like to do it properly. Samuel looked at her, understanding crossing his face. She'd been denied her wedding once. She deserved at least the dignity of speaking her vows in a sacred space. The church was small and cold, their breath misting in the air. Mrs. Mills, a plump woman with a gentle face, stood as witness along with the church caretaker. It wasn't the wedding Anna had imagined, no flowers, no guests, no white dress. But when Samuel took her hands and spoke his vows, his voice steady and sure, she realized this was better. This was real. I, Samuel Turner, take you, Anna Caldwell, to be my wife. I promise to protect you, provide for you, respect you, and cherish you through whatever comes. You've seen me at my worst, and you stayed anyway. I can't promise to be easy to live with, but I promise to try to be worth the trouble. The last part wasn't part of the traditional vows, but it was so essentially Samuel that Anna found herself laughing even as tears pricked her eyes. I, Anna Caldwell, take you, Samuel Turner, to be my husband. I promise to stand beside you, work with you, challenge you when you need it, and comfort you when you'll let me. You gave me shelter when I had none, purpose when I'd lost mine. I can't promise to be the wife you deserve, but I promise to be the partner you need. Reverend Mills pronounced them married, and Samuel kissed her there in the cold church. A kiss that promised warmth despite the winter, joy despite the hardships ahead. They signed the register, Anna's hand shaking slightly as she wrote Anna Turner for the first time. It was official. Legal. Real in a way Everett's promises had never been. Outside, word had spread. A small crowd had gathered, curious and gossipy. Mrs. Henderson was there, looking satisfied as if she'd arranged the whole thing herself. "About time, Samuel Turner," she called out. "That girl's too good for you, but at least you had the sense to marry her proper." Samuel actually smiled at that, his arm around Anna's waist. "Yes, ma'am, she is too good for me." Lucky for me, she said yes anyway. They stopped at the general store for supplies, and Mrs. Dalton insisted on giving them a wedding present, a set of embroidered pillowcases. "Every bride needs something nice for her wedding night," she said with a knowing look that made Anna blush. The ride home was different. They were married now, the space between them charged with new possibility. Samuel kept reaching for her hand, as if reassuring himself she was real. This was real. "Regrets?" he asked as they neared the ranch. "No," Anna said firmly. "You. Only that I didn't go to that depot sooner." As they pulled up to the cabin, Duke came running out, barking joyfully. The place looked different to Anna now, not just shelter, but home. Her home. Samuel helped her down from the sleigh, but instead of setting her on her feet, he carried her to the door. "Tradition," he said gruffly when she protested. Inside, he set her down gently, then seemed suddenly uncertain. They were married, but they were still essentially strangers in some ways. The intimacy that came next was uncharted territory for both of them. "I can still sleep in my room," Anna offered. "If you want time to adjust." Samuel silenced her with a kiss, deep and possessive. "I've had 32 years to adjust to being alone. I'm done with it." He led her to his room, their room now, and Anna saw he'd tried to make it nice. Fresh sheets, a fire already laid in the small fireplace, wildflowers somehow found and placed in a jar by the bed. "When did you do this?" "This morning, before you woke. Just in case, hoping." She touched the flowers, moved by the gesture from this man who claimed he couldn't do romance. "They're perfect." "You're perfect," he said, then seemed embarrassed by the declaration. "I mean—" Anna stopped his words with her mouth, pouring all her answer into the kiss. They came together with the desperate hunger of two people who'd been alone too long, who'd given up on being touched, being held, being loved. It wasn't gentle, it was need and want and claiming. But afterward, lying in Samuel's arms, Anna felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete, whole, home. "I love you," Samuel said into the darkness, the words seeming pulled from him. "I didn't expect to. Didn't think I could anymore. But I do." "I love you too," Anna replied, meaning it with every fiber of her being. "Not because you rescued me. Not because you're not Everett, but because you're you. Because you're honest and steady and real." They made love again, slower this time, learning each other, mapping scars and stories with hands and mouths. Samuel had a bullet scar on his shoulder, shrapnel marks on his back. Anna had a burn on her arm from a childhood accident, a birthmark on her hip her mother had said looked like a butterfly. Later, much later, as dawn was breaking, they lay tangled together, Samuel's hand playing with Anna's hair. "I need to tell you something," he said. "About Mary. About why she really left." Anna tensed, but he pulled her closer. "I need you to understand. After the war, I had nightmares, bad ones. I'd wake up fighting, not knowing where I was. Once I nearly hurt her, grabbed her throat in my sleep thinking she was enemy. She was terrified, and right to be. That's when she left." "Do you still have them? The nightmares?" "Sometimes. Less now, but you need to know, in case you grab me in your sleep?" Anna turned to face him. "Samuel, I've faced real monsters, debt collectors who wanted to take everything, men who thought a woman alone was fair game, my own sister's indifference. A nightmare you can wake from doesn't scare me." He studied her face in the dim light. "You really aren't afraid of anything, are you?" "I'm afraid of lots of things, but not of you, never of you." They dozed as the sun rose the first morning of their married life. When they finally rose, it was to do chores together, but everything felt different. The casual touches, the shared glances, the knowledge that tonight and every night they'd share a bed, a life, a future. That evening, as Anna cooked their first dinner as husband and wife, Samuel came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "Thank you," he said against her hair. "For what?" "For waiting on that platform. If you'd given up after 2 days, I'd never have found you." Anna turned in his arms, looked up at the man who'd become her husband, her home, her unexpected happy ending. "Then I guess Everett did us one favor. He brought us together, even if he never meant to." "To Everett," Samuel said wryly, "the worst matchmaker who made the best match." They laughed and kissed and burned dinner because they got distracted. But it didn't matter. Nothing mattered except that they were here, together, married. The winter stretched ahead, long and cold and isolating. But Anna wasn't afraid anymore. She had Samuel and he had her, and together they'd face whatever came. That night, as snow began to fall again, they made love with the confidence of married people. The urgency tempered by the knowledge that they had time now. All the time in the world. And afterward, as Samuel held her close, Anna thought about the woman she'd been on that platform. Desperate, abandoned, alone. That woman could never have imagined this. Love found in unexpected places, joy carved from sorrow, a future built on the ashes of false promises. "What are you thinking?" Samuel asked, his voice drowsy. "About how sometimes the wrong road leads you to exactly the right place." "And I'm the right place?" Anna kissed him, soft and sure. "You're home, Samuel Turner. You're home." The winter that followed their wedding was the hardest anyone in the valley could remember. The snow that had begun in October never seemed to stop, piling higher against the cabin walls until the windows on the north side were completely blocked. Samuel worked from dawn to dusk, just keeping paths clear to the barn, making sure the animals survived. Anna learned to read the weather in his face. The tight jaw that meant another storm was coming, the furrowed brow that meant they were running low on feed for the cattle. It was during the worst blizzard in January that everything changed. Samuel had gone to check on the cattle in the far pasture, promising to be back before dark. But dark came, and then full night, and still no Samuel. Anna stood at the window, straining to see through the driving snow, Duke whining anxiously at her feet. She waited another hour, then made her decision. Wrapping herself in every layer she could find, she lit a lantern and headed out into the storm. The wind nearly knocked her down immediately, the snow so thick she couldn't see 3 feet ahead. But she knew Samuel's route, had walked it with him enough times. She forced herself forward, calling his name, though the wind tore the words away. She found him by pure chance, or maybe by the instinct that connected them now. He was pinned beneath a fallen tree branch, half buried in snow, unconscious and cold as death. Anna's heart stopped, then started again, fierce and determined. She would not lose him, not now, not after everything. She couldn't move the branch, but she could dig. Using her hands, a piece of bark, anything she could find, she excavated him from the snow. He stirred when she touched his face, his eyes opening briefly. "Anna? You shouldn't. Too dangerous." "Shut up and help me," she said fiercely. "Push when I pull." Together, with her pulling and him using what strength remained, they got him free. But he couldn't walk. His leg was badly injured, maybe broken. Anna got his arm over her shoulders, her own strength surprising her as she half carried, half dragged him through the storm. How she found the cabin she never knew. Maybe it was Duke's barking that guided her, maybe pure stubborn will. But suddenly they were at the door, falling through it into warmth and safety. Anna got Samuel to the bed, working with desperate efficiency to get his frozen clothes off, to wrap him in blankets, to build up the fire until the room was stifling. His leg wasn't broken, but badly sprained and cut. She cleaned and bandaged it while he drifted in and out of consciousness, his skin still dangerously cold. She knew about hypothermia, how it could kill even after you got warm. So she did the only thing she could think of, stripped off her own clothes, and climbed under the blankets with him, pressing her warm skin against his cold, willing her heat into him. "Don't you dare die," she whispered against his chest. Don't you dare leave me, Samuel Turner. I waited 3 days for a man who never came. I won't wait for you to come back from death. He mumbled something, his arms coming around her weakly. She held him through the night, monitoring his breathing, his heartbeat, the slowly returning warmth to his skin. When dawn came and he opened clear, focused eyes, she burst into tears. "Hey," he said softly, his voice rough. "I'm all right. You almost died. You were gone for hours, and I thought—" She couldn't finish, couldn't voice the terror that had consumed her. "But you found me." His hand came up to cup her face. "My fearless Anna, you came out in that storm for me." "Of course I did. You're my husband. Where you go, I go, even into blizzards." He kissed her then, gentle and grateful, and she tasted mortality in it, how close they'd come to losing this. When they pulled apart, Samuel's expression was serious. "I need to teach you everything," he said. "How to run this place alone if something happens to me." "Nothing's going to happen. Anna, this land, this life, it doesn't give second chances. You need to know about the accounts, the cattle, which neighbors to trust, where I keep the emergency money." She wanted to protest, but she saw the fear in his eyes, not of death, but of leaving her unprepared. So over the next weeks, as his leg healed, Samuel taught her everything: how to read his ledgers, how to handle the rifle, how to doctor sick cattle, how to negotiate with buyers. Anna absorbed it all, understanding that this knowledge was his way of loving her, of protecting her even from beyond death if necessary. But teaching went both ways. Anna showed Samuel how to preserve food better, how to make medicines from herbs, how to stretch supplies when they ran low. She taught him songs from her childhood, stories from books he'd never read. Most importantly, she taught him how to be touched without flinching, how to accept comfort, how to lean on someone else's strength when his own failed. February brought a brief thaw, and with it, unexpected visitors. 3 men rode up one afternoon while Samuel was in the barn. Anna recognized the type immediately. Drifters, probably outlaws, definitely trouble. She met them at the door with Samuel's rifle in her hands. "Gentlemen," she said coolly, "can I help you?" The leader, a scarred man with cold eyes, smiled unpleasantly. "Well now, what's a pretty lady like you doing all alone out here?" "I'm not alone. My husband's in the barn, and our hands are in the bunkhouse." The lie came smoothly. They had no hands, but these men didn't know that. "Maybe we could come in, warm ourselves by your fire." "I don't think so." Anna cocked the rifle, the sound loud in the winter quiet. "Best you move on." The man's eyes narrowed. "That's not very hospitable." "Mister, I'm from Ohio. We define hospitality differently there. It doesn't include letting strangers into our homes uninvited." She kept her voice steady, though her heart was racing. "Now, I'm going to count to 10. If you're still here when I finish, I start shooting. 1. The men exchanged glances. 2. The scarred man laughed, but it was nervous. "You wouldn't—" 3. 4. Samuel appeared around the corner of the barn, his own rifle raised. "Problem, wife." "These gentlemen were just leaving," Anna said calmly. "Weren't you?" The men looked between the 2 rifles and made the smart choice. They rode off, but the leader called back, "This ain't over." That night, Samuel and Anna kept watch in shifts, but the men didn't return. Still, the encounter had shaken them both. "You handled that well," Samuel said as they lay in bed, his arms tight around her. "I was terrified." "Couldn't tell. You looked like you'd shoot them and not lose sleep over it." "I would have. To protect us. Our home. I would have." Samuel was quiet for a moment. "You've changed." The woman who sat on that platform wouldn't have faced down 3 outlaws. That woman hadn't found something worth fighting for yet. And now? Anna turned in his arms to face him. "Now I have everything to fight for. This land, this life. You, especially you." March brought news from town with the first travelers able to get through. The scarred man and his companions had been caught trying to rob a bank in Bozeman. They were dead, shot by the sheriff's posse. Anna felt only relief, though she knew she should probably feel something more Christian. That same month brought another change. Anna's monthly courses, always regular as clockwork, didn't come. She waited another week to be sure, then another, before telling Samuel. She chose her moment carefully, after dinner when he was relaxed by the fire. "I have something to tell you," she began, suddenly nervous. He looked up from the harness he was mending, something in her tone alerting him. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. At least, I don't think it's wrong. I hope you don't think—" She stopped, took a breath. "I'm carrying your child." The harness fell from his hands. Samuel stared at her, his face cycling through emotions too fast to read. We're having a baby." "Yes." He was across the room in 2 strides, lifting her from her chair, kissing her deeply. When he set her down, she saw tears in his eyes. Samuel Turner, who never cried, had tears on his cheeks. I never thought I'd be a father. After Mary left, I just assumed." "Well, you assumed wrong." Anna took his hands, placed them on her still flat stomach. "Come November, there'll be 3 of us." "November." He said it like a prayer. "A baby. Our baby. You're happy? Happy?" He laughed, the sound filled with joy. "Anna, I don't have words. You've given me everything I never thought I'd have. A wife, a real home, and now a child. I love you so much it terrifies me sometimes." They made love that night with new tenderness, Samuel treating her like spun glass until she reminded him she wasn't fragile. Afterward, he kept his hand on her stomach, as if he could feel the tiny life growing there. "What if I'm a terrible father?" he asked in the darkness. "I barely remember my own. What if I'm too hard, too cold?" "You won't be. You're already gentle with everything you love. Look how you are with Duke, with the horses. You'll love this child the same way you love, fierce and protective and true." Spring came slowly, the snow melting to reveal the damage of winter. They'd lost some cattle, though fewer than expected. The roof needed repair, and the garden had to be completely replanted. But Anna had never been happier, even as morning sickness made the early weeks miserable. Samuel was almost comically protective, trying to stop her from lifting anything heavier than a coffee pot. Anna had to firmly remind him that pioneer women had been having babies and working until the moment of birth for generations. "I'm pregnant. Not dying," she said in exasperation when he tried to stop her from hanging laundry. "But you're my pregnant wife," he countered. "That makes it different." They compromised. Anna would be careful, but not coddled. She continued to work, though Samuel took on the heavier chores. Her body changed, rounding and softening, and Samuel seemed fascinated by every development. In May, they attended the spring social in town, their first public appearance since the wedding. Anna was showing now, obviously pregnant, and the gossip mill went into overdrive calculating dates. But when the women saw how Samuel looked at his wife, like she hung the moon and stars, most criticism died. This was clearly a love match, whatever its origins. Mrs. Henderson cornered Anna at the refreshment table. "You're glowing, dear. Marriage and motherhood suit you." "Thank you. Though I could do without the morning sickness. Ginger tea helps." "I'll send some over." She paused. "I owe you an apology. When you first arrived, I thought poorly of the situation, but I see now what Samuel saw. A strong woman who'd make a good rancher's wife. You've been good for him." He smiles now. Never thought I'd see Samuel Turner smile. That night, as they rode home under a canopy of stars, Anna leaned against Samuel's shoulder. "Did you have a good time?" "Better than expected, though I could have done without Tom Bradley trying to give me fatherhood advice. The boy's not even married." Anna laughed. "He means well. Everyone means well. Doesn't mean I need to hear about how to diaper a baby from someone who's never held one." "Have you? Held a baby?" Samuel was quiet for a moment. "Once, in the war. Found an infant in a burned-out farmhouse, parents dead. Carried her 2 miles to a field hospital. Don't know if she survived." Anna took his hand. "Ours will survive. We'll thrive. We'll make sure of it." June brought the first real heat of summer, and with it, exhaustion for Anna. Her body felt foreign, ungainly. She couldn't get comfortable at night, and her back ached constantly. Samuel rubbed her back and feet without being asked, fetch her whatever she craved, even riding to town for pickles when she mentioned wanting them. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, the baby moved for the first time, a flutter like butterfly wings. Anna gasped, grabbed Samuel's hand, placed it on her belly. "Wait," she whispered. There it was again, stronger this time. Samuel's eyes widened. "That's our baby?" "That's our baby." He kept his hand there, waiting for more movement, his expression soft with wonder. "Does it hurt?" "No. It's strange, but not painful, like having a fish swimming inside me." "A fish?" He laughed. "Our child's a fish now?" "Until November, yes." They sat there until full dark, Samuel's hand on her belly, feeling their child move. It was one of those perfect moments that Anna knew she'd remember forever. The warm evening, the distant mountains, the man she loved discovering fatherhood through the wall of her skin. July was brutal, the heat making Anna miserable. She could barely eat, barely sleep. Samuel rigged up a fan system using wet cloths and built a bed on the porch where it was cooler. He never complained when she was irritable, never lost patience when she cried over nothing. "Why are you so good to me?" she asked one particularly bad night. "Because you saved me," he said simply. "I was dying here alone, just going through the motions. Then you showed up with your pride and your strength and your stubborn refusal to give up, and you brought me back to life. A little discomfort is nothing compared to that." August brought an unexpected trial. Samuel's former love, Mary, appeared at the ranch with her husband. They were moving further west, to Oregon, and had stopped to say goodbye. Mary was still beautiful, still gentle, everything Anna currently felt she wasn't, swollen, ungainly, irritable. "Samuel," Mary said softly, "you look well." "I am well." His arm came around Anna's waist. "This is my wife, Anna." "Anna, this is Mary and John Patterson." The women studied each other, the past and present colliding. Mary spoke first. "You're lucky, Mrs. Turner. Samuel's a good man." "The best," Anna agreed, her chin lifting. "Though I think luck had less to do with it than choice." "We chose each other." Something passed over Mary's face. Regret, perhaps, or relief. "I'm glad he found someone strong enough for this life." "I never was." After they left, Anna found herself crying, hormones and insecurity overwhelming her. "She's so beautiful. You must wish—" Samuel turned her to face him. "I wish for nothing. Mary was a dream from a different life. You're my reality, my future, the mother of my child. You're worth 1,000 Marys because you stayed. You saw me at my worst and stayed anyway." September flew by in a rush of preparation. Samuel built a cradle, working on it in secret in the barn until it was perfect. Anna sewed tiny clothes, her stitches careful and filled with love. The house was ready, they were ready, but the baby seemed content to wait. October arrived with its golden light and cool mornings. Anna was enormous now, barely able to move without help. The baby was active, keeping her awake at night with its acrobatics. Samuel would talk to her belly during these restless hours, telling the baby stories about the ranch, about its brave mother, about all the things they'd do together. On October 15th, exactly 1 year after Samuel had found her at the depot, Anna's water broke. It happened at dawn, a rush of warm fluid that woke her from fitful sleep. "Samuel," she said, shaking his shoulder, "it's time." He was up instantly, alert and terrified in equal measure. "I'll ride for Mrs. Henderson. She said she'd come when—" "There's no time." A contraction gripped her, stealing her breath. The baby's coming now. What followed were the longest and shortest hours of both their lives. Samuel, who delivered countless calves and foals, found himself completely out of his depth with human birth. But Anna guided him, her strength amazing him as she worked through the pain. "You're doing so well," he kept saying, wiping sweat from her face. "So strong, so brave." "Stop talking and catch this baby," Anna gasped as the urge to push overwhelmed her. And then, as the sun fully rose on that October morning, their daughter was born. She came into the world screaming, red-faced and perfect, with a shock of dark hair like her father's. Samuel caught her with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. It's a girl, he whispered, placing the baby on Anna's chest. Our daughter. Anna looked down at the tiny, squalling person they'd created and felt her heart expand beyond what she thought possible. Hello, little one. We've been waiting for you. What should we name her? Samuel asked, his finger stroking the baby's impossibly small hand. Anna thought of the journey that had brought them here, the depot, the wait, the unexpected love. Hope, she said. Hope Elizabeth Turner, because that's what she is. Hope that sometimes the wrong path leads to exactly the right place. Samuel kissed his wife, then his daughter, his heart so full he couldn't speak. A year ago, he'd been alone, convinced he'd die that way. Now he had a family, a real family, built not on pretty lies but on truth, trust, and the kind of love that grew stronger through hardship. Mrs. Henderson arrived an hour later, having seen Samuel's prearranged signal, a red cloth hanging from the porch. She found them all in bed together, the baby nursing while Samuel held both his girls close. Well, she said, smiling broadly, looks like you managed without me. Anna managed, Samuel corrected. I just did what I was told. Smart man. Mrs. Henderson checked both mother and baby, pronouncing them healthy. She's beautiful. Got her daddy's stubborn chin, I see. That evening, as Anna dozed with the baby in her arms, Samuel sat beside them, unable to stop staring. His wife, his daughter, his family. The cabin that had once echoed with loneliness now felt full to bursting with love. Anna woke to find him watching them. What are you thinking? That Everett was a fool, Samuel said softly. But I'm grateful for his foolishness. It brought me you, and now hope. I'd go through 100 winters alone if I knew this was waiting at the end. No more winters alone, Anna promised, shifting to make room for him in the bed. We're here now. We're staying. As the first snow of the season began to fall outside, the Turner family lay together in their bed, complete and content. The journey had been unconventional. A mail-order bride who'd been abandoned, a bitter rancher who'd given up on love, a marriage born of practicality that had transformed into profound partnership. But perhaps that was the point. The best love stories weren't the ones that went according to plan, but the ones that grew from the ashes of broken dreams, strengthened by adversity, and bloomed in the most unlikely soil. Hope fussed, and Anna adjusted her to nurse again. Samuel's hand covered both of theirs, protective and gentle. Outside, the Montana winter was beginning, but inside they were warm, safe, loved. It was more than Anna had dared hope for when she'd sat on that platform a year ago, and exactly what Samuel had never known he needed. Tell me again, Anna said sleepily, about finding me at the depot. Samuel smiled, settling in to tell the story that had already become family legend, the story Hope would grow up hearing. Well, Tom Bradley came by saying there was a woman waiting at the station, been there 3 days. As his voice rumbled on, Anna closed her eyes, feeling the weight of their daughter in her arms, the warmth of her husband beside her. She thought of the woman she'd been, desperate, alone, clinging to false promises. That woman could never have imagined this moment, this life, this love that had grown from the rocky soil of disappointment. But that was the miracle of it, wasn't it? Sometimes you had to lose everything you thought you wanted to find everything you actually needed. Sometimes the person who didn't come was just clearing the path for the one who would. And sometimes, just sometimes, abandonment was actually deliverance in disguise. The snow continued to fall, blanketing the ranch in white, covering all the rough edges and scars of the land. By morning, the world would be transformed, made new and clean, just like Anna herself had been transformed, from abandoned bride to beloved wife, from desperate woman to capable rancher, from childless to mother. I love you, she murmured, not sure if she was talking to Samuel or Hope or both. And we love you, Samuel replied, because he understood that love, real love, wasn't about pretty words or grand gestures. It was about showing up when someone needed you, about building something real from the wreckage of dreams, about choosing each other again and again through blizzards and births, through hardship and joy. The fire crackled in the hearth, the snow whispered against the windows, and the Turner family slept, safe in the knowledge that they were exactly where they belonged, not at the end of their story, but at the beginning of everything that mattered. Jianhe sang Document Edit Hope's first winter proved to be the mildest anyone could remember, as if nature itself was being gentle with the new family. The baby thrived, growing round and rosy, her dark eyes, Samuel's eyes, taking in everything with serious attention. Anna recovered quickly from the birth, her body finding its strength again as she nursed her daughter and resumed her work around the ranch. It was during a February thaw that the letter came. Tom Bradley brought it from town, his face curious as he handed over the envelope with its Eastern postmark. Anna recognized the handwriting immediately, her sister Catherine's perfect penmanship, unchanged since childhood. She opened it with trembling hands while Samuel watched, concern creasing his features. Hope slept peacefully in the cradle he'd made, unaware of the tension suddenly filling the room. "My dear Anna," she read aloud, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Word has reached Chicago of your circumstances. Married to a rancher in Montana, mother to a daughter. How different from the life we once imagined for ourselves. I write with news that affects us both. Robert's business has failed. We have lost everything, the house, the investments, even my jewelry. He has abandoned me, fleeing to avoid his creditors. I am alone, penniless, and desperate. I know I have no right to ask, given how I turned away from you in your time of need, but I throw myself upon your mercy. Your sister Catherine." The letter fell from Anna's numb fingers. Samuel picked it up, read it again silently, then looked at his wife. "What do you want to do?" Anna walked to the window, staring out at the snow-covered mountains. Part of her wanted to crumple the letter, to give Catherine the same cold response she'd received. But another part, the part that remembered sharing a bed with her sister during thunderstorms, whispered about forgiveness. "She's family," Anna said finally. "My only blood family besides Hope." "That's not what I asked. What do you want to do?" Anna turned to face him. "Would you mind? If she came here?" Samuel crossed to her, took her hands. "This is your home. Your family is my family, even the ones who hurt you. If you want her here, we'll make room. She might not be suited for this life. She was always the delicate one, the one who needed protecting. Then she'll learn to be stronger, or she won't last. The land will decide, same as it does for everyone." He paused. "But Anna, be sure. Some wounds don't heal just because you want them to." Anna thought of those 3 days on the platform, of the letter from Catherine saying her husband couldn't take on Anna's debts. Then she looked at Hope, innocent in her cradle, and thought about family, about second chances, about the grace that had brought her to Samuel. "Send her coach fare," Anna decided. "Tell her there's work here, not charity. She'll earn her keep like I did." Samuel kissed her forehead. "You're a better person than most would be." "No," Anna corrected. "I just remember what it feels like to have nowhere to go." The letter went out the next day, and with it, a strange sense of closure. Anna had found her place, her purpose, her family. Now she could afford to be generous with someone who hadn't been generous with her. March brought unexpected challenges. A late blizzard trapped them for a week, and during that time, Hope developed a fever that had both parents terrified. Anna walked the floor with her daughter for 3 straight nights, singing lullabies her mother had sung, praying to any deity that might listen. Samuel melted snow for cool baths, held his daughter when Anna's arms grew too tired, his usual stoicism cracking as the baby's cries grew weaker. On the 4th night, the fever broke. Hope opened clear eyes and reached for her mother's face with one tiny hand. Anna collapsed against Samuel, sobbing with relief while he held both his girls, his own eyes wet. "I couldn't lose her," Anna whispered. "I couldn't." "You won't. She's strong like her mother, stubborn like her father. This land won't beat her." But the fear lingered, making them both more protective, more aware of how fragile their happiness was. Every cough made them tense, every cry had them checking for fever. It was Mrs. Henderson who finally told them to relax. "Babies get sick and babies get well," she said pragmatically. "You can't wrap her in cotton wool. She needs to build strength, and that means weathering some storms." It was good advice, but hard to follow when your entire world was contained in such a small, vulnerable package. April arrived with thunderstorms that turned the roads to mud and made travel impossible. It was during one of these storms that Duke, their faithful dog, didn't come home. Samuel searched for 2 days before finding him in a ravine, leg broken, nearly dead from exposure. "We should put him down," Samuel said heavily. "It's the merciful thing." But Anna saw how his hand trembled on his rifle, how this dog, who'd been his only companion for so long, meant more than just an animal. "Let me try," she said. "I've set bones before." She worked on Duke with the same determination she'd brought to everything else, setting the leg, creating a splint, nursing him through the dangerous first days. The dog would never run quite the same, would always have a limp, but he survived, and his tail still wagged when Samuel came near. "You save everything," Samuel said one night as Duke slept by the fire, hope in her cradle, the storm finally passing. "Me, Duke, this whole place." "We save each other," Anna corrected. "That's what family does." Catherine arrived in May, stepping off the stage in a traveling dress that had seen better days, her face thinner, her eyes holding a wariness that hadn't been there before. The sisters stood facing each other in front of the general store, the years and hurts between them like a physical presence. "Anna," Catherine said, her voice uncertain. Thank you for—" "Come meet your niece," Anna interrupted, not ready for apologies or explanations. Not yet. The ride to the ranch was awkward, Catherine trying to make conversation while clearly shocked by the rustic reality of Anna's life. When they arrived at the cabin, small, simple, nothing like the grand house Catherine had lost, Anna saw her sister's face fall. "This is where you live?" "This is home," Anna said firmly. "Samuel, this is my sister Catherine. Catherine, my husband." Samuel nodded politely but with reserve. He'd supported bringing Catherine here, but Anna knew he hadn't forgiven her for abandoning Anna when she'd needed help. His loyalty was absolute, and anyone who'd hurt his wife was automatically suspect. Inside, Catherine met Hope for the first time. The baby, now 7 months old, regarded her aunt with solemn eyes before breaking into a gummy smile. Catherine's composure cracked. "She's beautiful," she whispered, tears starting. "Oh, Anna, she's perfect." "She's also hungry, needs changing, and doesn't sleep through the night," Anna said practically. "If you're staying, you'll help with all of it." "Of course. I'll do whatever you need." And to her credit, Catherine tried. But it was clear from the first day that she was completely unprepared for ranch life. She couldn't milk a cow without getting kicked, couldn't gather eggs without getting pecked, couldn't cook over a wood stove without burning everything. Her soft hands blistered immediately, and she cried the first night from sheer exhaustion. Anna found her sister sitting on the porch that evening, tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this," Catherine sobbed. "I'm useless here. I don't know how you manage it all." Anna sat beside her, remembering her own first days, how overwhelming it had all been. "I learned. So will you. But you're strong. You always were. I'm nothing without pretty dresses and social calls." "You're wrong," Anna said firmly. "You're my sister. You're Hope's aunt. You're a woman who survived being abandoned by her husband. That's not nothing." They talked through the night, really talked for the first time since their parents' death. Catherine explained about Robert's gambling, his debts, how she'd watched their life crumble piece by piece. Anna told her about the depot, about Everett's betrayal, about finding Samuel and building this life from nothing. "You love him," Catherine said with wonder. "Really love him. More than I thought possible. He's not what I expected, but he's everything I needed. And he loves you. I can see it in how he watches you, like you might disappear if he looks away." "We earned each other," Anna said simply. "Through winter storms and sickness, through fear and loss. That's what makes it real." Catherine stayed, slowly learning the rhythms of ranch life. She was surprisingly good with Hope, having infinite patience for the baby's fussing. She learned to cook, though her bread remained stubbornly dense. She even managed to make peace with the chickens, though the rooster remained her mortal enemy. Samuel warmed to her gradually, especially when he saw how she defended Anna to Mrs. Henderson, who'd made a snide comment about mail-order brides during a visit. "My sister," Catherine had said coldly, "is the strongest woman I know. She built a life from ruins. She saved this ranch, and the man who owns it. Anyone who can't see that is blind." That night, Samuel told Anna, "Your sister can stay as long as she wants." Summer brought its own challenges and joys. Hope began crawling, getting into everything, requiring constant vigilance. The garden Anna had replanted flourished, providing fresh vegetables that made their meals infinitely better. The cattle thrived, and Samuel was able to sell several head for a good profit. It was during the 4th of July celebration in town that things shifted for Catherine. She met James Morrison, the schoolteacher's son who'd just returned from college back east. He was gentle, educated, nothing like the flashy Robert had been. And he was immediately smitten with the beautiful Eastern woman who could quote Shakespeare while churning butter. "He's too young for me," Catherine protested when Anna teased her about his obvious interest. "And I'm still married." "Robert abandoned you, and James doesn't seem to care about your age." Anna studied her sister. "You could do worse than a school teacher. They don't make much money, but they're steady." After Robert, steady sounds like paradise. The courtship was slow, proper, with James coming to the ranch for Sunday dinners, helping with harvest, proving himself capable of hard work despite his education. Samuel approved, saying any man willing to sweat for a woman was worth considering. August brought news that changed everything again. Robert had been killed in San Francisco, shot during a card game where he'd been caught cheating. Catherine was a widow, free to remarry if she chose. She cried when the news came, but Anna suspected it was more relief than grief. That same month, Anna realized she was pregnant again. She told Samuel during an evening ride, just the two of them while Catherine watched Hope. "Another baby," he said, his face lighting up. "When?" "Spring, I think. April or May." He pulled her close, kissed her deeply. "How do you feel about it?" "Happy, scared. Hope nearly died from that fever. What if—" "No what ifs," Samuel said firmly. "We'll face whatever comes, same as always. Together." The pregnancy was easier this time, Anna's body knowing what to do. She was less sick, more energetic. Hope toddled around after her, babbling in a language only she understood, though Mama and Papa were clear enough. September brought Catherine's wedding to James. It was small, just family and a few friends, held in the church where Anna and Samuel had married. Catherine wore Anna's never-used wedding dress, altered to fit, and the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. One sister's abandoned dream becoming another's new beginning. "Are you happy?" Anna asked as she helped Catherine with her veil. "I'm content," Catherine replied. "After everything, content feels miraculous." They moved into a small house in town where James had been appointed the new schoolmaster after his father's retirement. Catherine would help with the school, teaching the younger children their letters. It was a simple life, nothing like the luxury she'd known in Chicago, but her face had lost its pinched look, and her smile came easier. October marked 2 years since Samuel had found Anna at the depot. They celebrated quietly, just the two of them after Hope was asleep. Samuel gave Anna a gift, a gold locket with Hope's picture inside, one of the traveling photographer's tintypes from the summer social. "It's beautiful," Anna breathed. "Open it fully." Inside, opposite Hope's picture, was a tiny folded paper. Anna unfolded it carefully. It was the telegram from that day, the one saying a woman was waiting at the depot. "You kept this?" "It changed everything," Samuel said simply. "Seemed worth keeping." They made love with the tenderness of a couple who'd weathered storms together, who knew each other's bodies like maps of home. Afterward, lying entwined, Anna felt the new baby move for the first time. "Samuel," she whispered, guiding his hand to her belly. His face softened as he felt the flutter. "Hello, little one. Your sister's gonna boss you around something fierce." Winter came early that year, but they were ready. The root cellar was full, wood stacked high, animals prepared. Anna had sewn new quilts with Catherine's help before she married, and the cabin felt cozier than ever. It was during the first big storm that the stranger arrived. A woman, heavily pregnant, stumbling through the snow. Samuel found her collapsed by the barn, nearly frozen. They brought her inside, warmed her by the fire, but she was in labor, too weak to push. Anna took charge, drawing on everything she'd learned from her own labor and from watching Mrs. Henderson. For hours she worked, coaxing, encouraging, until finally the baby came. A boy, small but breathing. The woman, Lucy, was young, maybe 18. She'd been traveling to her husband's claim when her horse died. She'd walked for miles in the snow, determined to reach shelter. "Where's your husband's claim?" Samuel asked. Lucy's face crumbled. "I don't know. He sent directions, but I lost the paper. I don't even know if he's still waiting." Anna and Samuel exchanged glances. Another woman abandoned, another promise unkept. Without discussion, they knew what they'd do. "You'll stay until spring," Anna said firmly. "Then we'll help you find your husband or figure out something else." Lucy cried with relief, clutching her baby. That night, as she slept in Catherine's old room, Anna stood watching the snow fall. "We're collecting strays," Samuel said, coming up behind her. "We're building family," Anna corrected. "The kind you choose, not just the kind you're born to. Our children will grow up thinking it's normal to take in everyone who needs help." "Good," Anna said fiercely. "I want them to know that sometimes the best families are the ones made from broken pieces." Christmas came with the cabin full of life. James and Catherine visited. Lucy helped with cooking while carrying her baby in a sling Anna had made. Hope toddled around, getting into everything. The table Samuel had built for two now needed extending. They told stories around the fire. Samuel's memories of Christmas during the war, Anna's traditions from Ohio, Lucy's tales from her Swedish grandmother. Hope fell asleep in her father's arms while snow fell soft outside, sealing them in their warm world. January was brutal, temperatures dropping so low that ice formed inside the windows. They kept the fires burning constantly, all sleeping in the main room for warmth. It was during one particularly vicious night that Lucy's baby developed the same fever Hope had had the year before. This time, Anna knew what to do. She worked with calm efficiency while Lucy panicked, showing her how to cool the fever, how to get the baby to nurse even when he didn't want to. Samuel helped, his big hands gentle as he walked the floor with the fussing infant so Lucy could rest. The baby survived, and something shifted in Lucy. She stopped talking about finding her husband, started talking about staying, about raising her son here where people cared more about character than circumstances. "Would that be possible?" she asked Anna one morning. "Could I stay? Work for you properly?" Anna thought about it. Come spring, she'd have two small children. Help would be welcome. But more than that, Lucy had become like a younger sister, someone who understood abandonment and survival. "We'll need to build another room," Anna said. "Can't have you sleeping in the main room forever." Lucy's face lit up. "I can help build." "I'm stronger than I look." February brought a letter that shook their small world. It was from a lawyer in Helena informing Samuel that Everett had left him everything, which turned out to be substantial. Everett had been living off investments their grandmother had left, investments Samuel hadn't known existed. $20,000, Samuel said, stunned. He had $20,000 and was still taking money from desperate women? Anna took the letter, read it carefully. It says he left a note. "For you." Samuel opened the enclosed envelope with trembling hands. Inside, Everett's weak handwriting spelled out his last words. "Samuel, I was never the man you thought I was, or the man I pretended to be. I was weak, selfish, cruel, but I did one good thing. I brought Anna to Montana. Take the money. Be happy. Be everything I couldn't be. Your cousin, Everett." Samuel crumpled the letter, threw it in the fire. But Anna saw his shoulders shake just once, with grief for the cousin he'd loved despite everything. "What do we do with $20,000? Anna asked quietly. "Build," Samuel said after a moment. "Build a real house, big enough for our family. Buy more land, more cattle. Make something that will last." "And Lucy? Gets a real salary, a real position. Foreman's widow, maybe, so people don't ask questions." They started planning that night, sketching out dreams on precious paper. A house with separate bedrooms, a proper kitchen, maybe even a water pump inside. A larger barn, better fencing, perhaps even hired hands to help with the growing herd. March arrived with Anna heavy with child, Hope walking confidently, Lucy's son thriving. The house was full of women and children, full of life in a way Samuel had never imagined. Sometimes Anna caught him just standing in the doorway, watching them all with wonder on his face. "What?" she asked one evening. "I used to sit here alone," he said, "just me and Duke and silence. Now look." She looked, Hope playing with blocks Samuel had carved, Lucy singing to her son, the fire warm, food cooking, the sound of family filling every corner. Regrets? She teased, echoing his question from their wedding day. Never. This is what I was waiting for. I just didn't know it. On April 1st, as if the baby had a sense of humor, Anna went into labor. This time Mrs. Henderson was there from the start, Lucy helping, Samuel banished to pace the porch despite his protests. The labor was faster, but no easier. Anna gripped Lucy's hands, remembering that first birth when it had just been her and Samuel, terrified and determined. Now she had support, knowledge, confidence. When the baby finally came, it was another girl, this one with Anna's lighter hair, but Samuel's stubborn chin. What will you name her? Mrs. Henderson asked as she cleaned the baby. Anna looked at Samuel, who'd been allowed back in. Faith, she said. Hope and faith, because that's what it takes to build a life out here. Samuel kissed her, then his new daughter, then Hope, who was regarding her sister with deep suspicion. My girls, he said, my beautiful, strong girls. That night, as Anna nursed Faith while Hope slept between them, Samuel told her about the plans he'd been making. I want to build a school. On our land, hire James to teach. Lucy's boy will need education. Our girls will need it. Other ranchers have children. We could build something important. With Everett's money? It seems fitting. He destroyed things. We'll build them. Anna thought about Everett, about the false promises that had brought her here. You know what's strange? I'm grateful to him. If he'd been honorable, if he'd met me at that depot, I'd never have found you. Don't be grateful to him, Samuel said darkly. Be grateful to yourself. You're the one who waited. You're the one who stayed. You're the one who chose to build instead of breaking. Spring bloomed around them, the ranch coming alive with new growth. The construction on the new house began, the frame rising like a promise against the sky. Lucy officially became their foreman's widow, complete with a fabricated but believable backstory. Catherine announced she was expecting, due in winter. One evening, as the sun set over the mountains, Anna stood in the doorway of the cabin watching her family. Samuel was showing Hope how to feed the chickens, the little girl shrieking with delight when they pecked corn from her hand. Lucy was hanging laundry while her son played in the dirt nearby. Faith slept in the sling across Anna's chest, warm and perfect. This wasn't the life she'd planned. That life, married to Everett, living his dreams instead of her own, would have been a pretty prison. This life, built on honesty and hardship, sustained by love and will, was infinitely better because it was real. Mama, look! Hope called, holding up an egg she'd found. I found it all myself. Good job, my love, Anna called back. Samuel looked up at her, his face soft with the expression he saved just for her. He mouthed, I love you, across the yard, and Anna felt her heart expand with the same feeling she'd had that first night as his wife. Complete, whole, home. The Turner Ranch had become something more than just a homestead. It had become a refuge for the lost, a place where abandoned women became cherished wives, where orphaned babies found families, where broken dreams were composted into new growth. And at the center of it all were Anna and Samuel, two people who'd found each other in the ruins of other plans and built something extraordinary. As night fell and they all gathered inside for supper, their table expanded again and again to accommodate their growing circle. Anna said a silent prayer of gratitude. Not to the God of her childhood who allowed suffering, but to the mysterious force that sometimes transformed suffering into joy, abandonment into belonging, desperation into strength. Tell us the story, Papa, Hope demanded, as she did every night. About finding Mama. Samuel smiled, settling his daughter on his lap. Well, Tom Bradley came by saying there was a woman waiting at the depot. The story had become legend, told and retold, each telling adding meaning. It was the story of their beginning, but more than that, it was the story of choice, the choice to wait, the choice to ride through the night, the choice to stay, the choice to love. Outside, the Montana night spread vast and dark, full of dangers and possibilities. But inside, in the golden circle of lamplight, the Turner family was safe, warm, together. The abandoned bride had become the beloved wife. The bitter rancher had become the devoted father, And the depot platform where dreams had died had become just a memory, a necessary stop on the journey to something infinitely better.